Hi, and welcome. This sequence is all about spinal rotation and extension, and we're going to start by lying on our backs. And you have the option of either having your knees bent or your legs straight. So I'm going to do legs straight for today, and then bring one hand to your belly and one hand more towards your ribs. And begin to notice your breath. And start to slow down your breath. And channel your awareness to your right shoulder blade. And your right shoulder blade, your right scapula, it's a triangular shaped bone. So see if you can trace somewhat of an image in your mind of that triangular shaped bone and how it connects to the floor, or just how the upper back on the right side connects to the floor. And then shift your awareness over to your left upper back, where your left shoulder blade is. And notice how your left shoulder blade connects to the floor. Then let your head roll a little bit from side to side. Notice how your neck is feeling. And as you breathe in, let your belly and your ribs expand. And on exhale, check in with how it feels across the back of your head as you roll your head from side to side. Then bring your head back to center and sense where your spine is in between your shoulder blades and how it's connected to the floor. So we'll set an intention for the practice, and if you're already working with a sankalpa or a personal intention, bring that to mind. If you'd like to use the intention for the class today, it's I am a student of my body. I am a student of my breath. So on your next breath in, bring to mind either your personal intention or the intention of this class, which is I am a student of my body. And on exhale, reconfirm your personal intention or the intention of the class. I am a student of my breath. So go ahead and roll over onto your side and come on up to seated. And we're going to do a check, recheck, a before and after. And I like to call this Groundhog Day because it reminds me of the groundhogs coming up in the spring to see if it's springtime or not. You can call it whatever you want. I like to use a few props for this, and it will depend on what you like. So you can take a block. I'm going to take a block just to sit on, so I have a little bit of lift under my pelvis, but not necessary. Or of course you could do more. And then the other block I'm going to place in front of my left knee. Then I'm going to take my left elbow and put it against my knee with my forearm on the block. Now, again, you could build this up as high as you like. You'll know how high based on your spine. So if you can see, when I'm here, my spine is rounded. So what we're doing, I want to start with a relatively neutral spine, so that's why the lift is here. And then we're going to check in with extension and rotation. So take your hand to your sternum. And what we tend to do with extension and rotation is kind of like a side bend and a back bend. But instead, I want you to think about one long line from the crown of your head to your tailbone, and like a barber pole that you're rotating around. So it's nice to be able to push down with your forearm and then have your chest as kind of your guide to turn. The other cheat I really want to do is just kind of shift my hips off to the side. So if you can keep your sits bones connected to your heels or feel the connection to the block. And it's slow. So as you lengthen from crown of your head to tailbone, just turn a little bit in your upper back and then pause. Take another breath in, lengthen again, and turn just a little bit more. So we're going for more of like pure rotation as opposed to back bend with side bend. Let's go one more time. Inhale, lengthen the sides of your waist, and then exhale, turn. And just notice, it's probably a lot of work happening in the muscles that rotate and extend your spine, so all along your back and then into the shoulder, and then slowly come back to where you started. We'll do the same thing on the other side. So build up as many bricks as you need to be able to start in neutral. And I just think it's nice to have this connection of my elbow to knee, because I'm kind of pulling back like that a little bit. If you have more blocks, you could always add another block if you have long forearms. And then feel that you're not shifting your hips off to the side. Then from here, again, you'll take your hand to your chest and take a breath in and lengthen. And then as you turn, keep the length. And don't turn as far as you can, just turn maybe a third of the way. And then pause, take another breath in, and exhale as you turn a little bit more. And notice, I want a side bend, so can I just rotate without the side bending? And then take another breath in, last time, inhale. And as you exhale, rotating. And just kind of notice what it feels like. Where's the struggle? This is I have a lot less range on this side than I do the other side. And that's okay. And then return. Okay, so we're gonna move into a somatic sequence. I call this prone salutes. You don't need any props, and you'll be lying on your belly. And we'll start with the right hand on top of left hand. This is often called crocodile pose. And then you'll connect your forehead to the back of your right hand. And first, just take a moment to let your whole front body sink into the ground. And then as you exhale, just float your head up off your hands, very small amount, so you can see your hands, and lower back down. And you can link this with your breath or not. So you could explore both breath patterns. You could inhale to lift and look at the back of your hand. Exhale to lower. Or you could just breathe naturally, noticing what it feels like when you lift your head up a little, gaze is still down, and lower back down. Because there's lots of different strategies you could use to make this movement happen. And then we're going to continue, but this time when you lift up, I want you to look with your eyes about 8 to 10 inches out in front of you on the floor and lower back down. And remember, you can rest at any time. You are the boss of your body, so just because I do it a certain number of times doesn't mean that you should or you need to do it that same number of times. So you lift, you look at your hands, and you look maybe 8 to 10 inches out in front of you at the floor, and lower back down. And do same thing, but this time you'll look at your hands, you'll look at the floor beyond your hands, and then look at where the floor meets the wall, the baseboard, so to speak. We'll do that a couple more times. So you're tracking your gaze from your hands to the floor, to where the floor meets the wall. And you might stick with that, or you might add on a little. So hands, floor meets the wall, and then maybe a little bit up the wall. And back down. A couple more times. Notice what it's like when you push your arms into the ground to make this movement happen versus when you don't, when you mostly focus on using the muscles in your upper back to make it happen without any ground force reaction or assistance from your arms. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, just options. And then take a little rest here and observe your breath and your body and your breath. Then begin to lift your right elbow off the ground and lower it back down. And the first time I learned this sequence in a Feldenkrais class, the teacher doesn't demonstrate, so there's no visual, and I thought it was impossible. I was like, I don't know how to lift my elbow off the ground in this position. And that's okay, that's part of the figuring out process or the puzzle of many of these sequences. If this helps you at all, what helped me was thinking of how I had to bend at my wrist joint. That's one way of thinking about it, but another way would be to think about what has to happen in your shoulder blade to be able to lift your elbow up and down. Let's do that one more time. And then take a rest. So resting means all of the muscles that you're probably contracting a little bit to help with that action can soften and let go. And because you have the feedback of the ground, use it, meaning as you breathe in, let your belly expand into the floor. And then let that expansion continue into your middle back, your upper back ribs, followed by your exhale. So we're going to add on. So now you'll lift your head and your right arm up and lower back down. I'll do this maybe 4 or 5 more times, exploring different strategies. So you might keep it really small or make it big. You might do this with your lower body completely relaxed, so legs, glutes, abdominals, everything relaxed. Or you might do something else. You might actually kind of push the tops of your legs into the ground, and that'll activate your hamstrings and glutes a bit and your belly. So it becomes more of a corrective exercise or maybe a Pilates preparatory exercise as opposed to a somatic exercise. And then, of course, there's your left arm. So what's it like when you push into the ground with your left arm to make this movement happen versus what is it like when you don't? And then just take a little rest. Observe your breath. Maybe your breath shortened a little. Mine did. It became more shallow because of the movement. So let your breath become full again. And then we'll add on. So you'll lift your head and your right arm, but you'll add some rotation. And then coming back down. And I want you to explore what it's like when it's really small, meaning you barely lift up and you barely rotate, versus what it's like when it's bigger. Most of us tend to do one or the other, or we like doing it one of those two ways. We like to keep things small and subtle and nuanced, or we like to make it big and feel a lot. So whichever you tend towards, try doing the opposite a few times, or maybe the whole time, just for variety's sake. A lot of somatics is about introducing variability into your movement in order to retrain movement patterns, or to let certain areas of your body relax that are always doing things so that others can participate more. Last time, I didn't say eyes open or eyes closed, so try eyes open if you haven't. And what do you see out of the right corner of your right eye up towards the ceiling, and how does that change your experience of the movement? And then take a rest. Going back to your Sankalpa, your personal intention, or I am a student of my body, I am a student of my breath. So our next progression is to lift both arms up off the floor. And you'll keep your head attached to the back of your right hand. And again, I want you to notice, what does it feel like when you barely lift off the ground? Maybe like a centimeter. Versus what does it feel like when you lift off the ground a lot? And when I say what does it feel like, meaning what do you notice in your upper back versus more of your middle back? And then going back to this idea of ground force reaction. So what's it like when you push the tops of your feet, your legs into the ground to get this seesaw effect of your upper body lifting? Versus what is it like when your lower body is completely relaxed, no muscular activation from the waist down? Knowing that there's no right or wrong, there's just options and strategies. Let's do one more time. Lifting both arms with your head supported on the back of your hand, and then take a rest. Okay, last variation here. So you're going to lift your arms, your head, just like you did before, but add a rotation. So maybe your left elbow taps the ground, you kind of peek under your right elbow, and then return to the floor. You could separate it into two parts where you lift and turn, and then derotate and lower. Or you could make it just one long, continuous movement. Try it 2 or 3 more times. What's it like with your eyes closed versus open? How does it feel when you get your lower body involved versus when you relax your lower body? Last time. And then take a rest. Then place your hands underneath your shoulders. We're going to do a halfway check of Groundhog Day. So you'll grab your props and I'm going to take one block to sit on and the other block to the front of my left knee. And then I'll connect my elbow to my knee, and I'm pushing down as if I'm in a forearm plank rather than sinking low. So I've got that protraction, depression, I'm kind of pulling backwards to connect, and then I'm feeling I haven't shifted my pelvis off to one side or the other, so there's a connection from sits bones to heel bones. Right hand comes to my chest, and I lengthen. I'm gently pushing the tops of my feet into the ground, and as I turn, I'm trying to keep both sides of my waist the same length, so it's not a side bend. Also, trying not to back bend. So if my front ribs really spill out, there's the back bend, so containing the front ribs. And let's do one more breath. Just pause for a moment, notice how it feels. It feels a little easier and a lot more movement for me, and then return. Let's see how it feels on the other side, because we haven't done the other side yet, so probably be a little bit different. So elbow to knee, push down into the block, left hand to chest. Connect your heel bones to your sits bones, or just feel that you're not shifting off to one side or the other if you've got a bigger prop there. And then lengthen. Inhale, keep that length as you rotate. Maybe just a third of the way and pause. And then inhale, lengthen again. Exhale, rotate a little more. And then one more time. Breathing in, expand your ribs. Try to contain the front ribs so there's no back bending. Ooh, see what's happening with your side bend. If you can Make sure you're not doing a big side bend to the right, and then return. That side felt better than it did the first time around, but I still had a little more movement to the right. Okay, so we're gonna repeat all that on the other side. So coming back onto your belly for prone salutes, and this time it's your left hand that's on top. Rest your forehead and let your whole body soften into the floor. And then begin to just do a small lift. Your forehead leaves your left hand for a moment and then returns. And as you do this movement, play with getting the arms involved, meaning pushing down to lift up. Notice how that's like a little more efficient, right? It makes things easier versus what it's like when you don't push your arms into the ground. And more efficient isn't always better. Sometimes we want to specifically strengthen certain muscles, like maybe the muscles in the upper back. So you're giving yourself a little challenge by not pushing your arms into the ground. But I encourage you to try both. One more time, and then we add on. So the add-on is you'll start to look beyond your hands to the floor in front of you, maybe 10, 20 inches away. And these are developmental positions that babies do. So tummy time, right? This is adult tummy time. When you're a baby and your head is like half the size of your body, you're half head, half body, you have to develop enough strength to lift your head, which is big at that stage. But it happens, and it's really fun to watch, or I think it's fun to watch. So on these next few, you might stick with what you're doing, or you might start to take your gaze to where the floor meets the wall. And if where the floor meets the wall feels easy, doable, maybe you start to track your gaze up even higher. Now, we could do this with our arms in different positions. You can explore just for a moment this more, I call it like a diamond position. And notice how that changes it. Just moving your forearms, how does that change your ability to track your gaze up the wall that's in front of you? And then take a rest. Left hand is still on top. Inhale, and notice if it's easier to expand your belly and your ribs. And then exhale, notice your body and your breath and your body. So now you'll lift and lower your left elbow. And as you do that, I want you to try lifting it just a tiny, tiny bit, like a few millimeters. A couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times, because you'll feel different muscles working than when you lift it as high as you can. Notice how that feels different. There might be different muscles activating around your shoulder blade to lift it high versus to just hover your elbow very low. And on these last couple times, maybe you explore hiking your shoulder up to your ear as you lift your elbow, so scapular elevation, versus sliding your shoulder blade down away from your ear when you lift your elbow and feel your shoulder blade retract. Last time, lifting your elbow up and then resting. Okay, so now we're going to lift our whole left arm, keeping the back of your left hand attached to your forehead. And play around with pushing into the ground with your right arm pretty vigorously for a couple of times, and then try it without pushing your right arm into the ground. If you've been doing eyes closed, try eyes open and maybe tracking your gaze beyond your right hand to the floor. Let's go 2 more times. Observing how it's different when you have your eyes open, you try to look forward versus eyes closed and keeping your gaze down. And then rest. Now, of course, if you needed to do like a cat pose or a child's pose, if this feels like a lot of spinal extension, don't do all the repetitions or take a break, maybe do a cat pose. So honor your body. So we add rotation. You'll lift and turn. And continue with that, maybe 4 or 5 more times. And I always find this is interesting to notice when I teach this to a big group of people. A lot of times I'll see, somebody's right glutes just completely firing like on all cylinders to make this happen, which isn't good or bad, it just is. Or I'll see people doing a lot of side bending to lift and turn. And so notice, maybe it's your hamstrings that just really want to help, and that's okay. If any of those things are happening, try to relax other parts of your body. And if relaxing other parts of your body is easy, try some of those strategies. Try maybe pushing your legs into the ground and engaging your glutes and your abdominals and really pushing your right arm hard into the ground to see how they're different. Just options. So it's my favorite thing. One of my favorite things about somatics is it helps you find options on your own. All right, take a rest. And as you rest and breathe, if you want, you can turn your head a little bit from side to side. There are so many more variations to this sequence. If you take a full hour Feldenkrais class, some of my favorites are when you come up and you do head turning and you do lateral translation of the skull. So know that this is not all of everything, but it's a wonderful place to start. Okay, so next we're going to lift both arms and lower. And you might notice a difference just because your left hand is on top instead of your right. Try making it small versus big. And when you make it small, I think it's fun to try to lengthen through the crown of your head and out through your tailbone. So feel spinal traction versus when you make it more into a back bend. So there's more spinal compression in the back body. And compression not being a bad word or a bad thing, just different. Traction and length versus extension with compression. And then take a rest. And as you inhale, expand your belly, but also expand your ribs front to back, side to side, that 3-dimensional breath, followed by your exhalation. Okay, last variation. So you'll lift up and then rotate to the left, and then return. So both arms lift. Again, doesn't need to be super high. When you rotate, your right elbow will probably run into the ground, and then you come back down. And what's it like when you do it in 2 parts? Extension, rotation, back to extension, and down, versus making it one continuous movement. Maybe you noticed, I noticed that when I did it this last time, my right knee kind of left the ground because my right hamstring was like, yes, we'll help, which isn't bad or good, it's just interesting. Last couple of times, use your eyes if you haven't already, If your eyes have been closed, try it once or twice, trying to notice what you can see up towards the ceiling out of your left eye. And what's it like when it's big versus small? And then rest. Inhale and expand. Exhale to release and relax. Okay, so bring your hands under your shoulders. We're going to come back and recheck Groundhog Day. So you'll be kneeling with, if you have the same setup I do, one block underneath your sits bones, your buttocks, another block in front of your left knee. We'll start here. So left elbow to left knee, and then right hand to your chest. And sometimes, I don't know, this might be fun to try here where you have a different feedback loop for your brain. So I'm going to try this time. So inhale, lengthen a little bit. Exhale, turn. Not all the way, just part way. And then lengthen again as you inhale and turn a little more. And I'm making all these like little wiggles and adjustments. This is what my body wants to do, really wants to do that. So how can I kind of reconnect back to my midline as I turn? And then we'll check the other side. So shifting the block over to in front of your right knee, right elbow connection. And let's stick with this hand to head as opposed to hand to heart, just to try it out. Here's gravity, me sinking into gravity. So as if you were in a forearm plank, you'll protract and depress your right shoulder blade. Then notice the shift. So try not to shift your hips off to the left. And the other thing you're avoiding is side bending to the right. So inhale, lengthen, and turn. Side is still a challenge. So think about this, is what I'm thinking about, is I'm trying to pull my knees in towards each other. Oh, that helps. Because when I get that connection of my inner thighs, the adductors, that helps my brain connect me to my midline. And then, wow, that was different. A lot more range there. So notice how your experience was. And then you can remove the blocks. And we'll do our last check-in on our back. So once you're on your back again, you can do knees bent or legs long. Bring one hand to your belly and one hand to your ribs. And go back to sensing the connection of your right shoulder blade to the floor and your left shoulder blade to the floor. And at the beginning, I asked you to notice if one felt heavier than the other or if one felt lighter. So how does it feel now? And then finally, being a student of your body and your breath, inhale fully through your nose. Feel the expansion with your hands in the front. Notice the expansion through the ground, from your back ribs. And then exhale. One more time. Slow breath in. Belly expands. Ribs stretch apart, front to back, side to side. And then you empty. And then roll onto your left side and make your way up to seated. For this next sequence, we will be sliding on the floor, and so it's best if you get rid of your mat, your props, and just have a bare floor so that you can be able to slide your arms and your legs. For this sequence, we're going to do our check and recheck in Marichyasana 3. So you'll come into Dandasana, and we'll start on the right side. So bending your right knee, and lots of options here. I like this option where I take the crook of my elbow and kind of hug in like so. Some people like to do this option here. So whatever your favorite way to do this is. And then it's really nice to have a kickstand of your right hand on the floor. So start when you're not twisted into it fully, just to ease your way in. So let's actually start in cat or rounded spine, and inhale into your back side ribs. And as you exhale, you'll start to extend your spine and rotate. And let's do that 2 more times. So inhale, round your spine, drop your head. And then exhale, lengthen your spine and rotate. And let's stay in this position. Inhale again. And as you exhale, use your eyes. So you're going to turn your head and notice what you can see behind you out of the right corner of your right eye. So I can actually see there's like barely, but I can see it, outlet, socket, kind of close to the floor. So pick an object or a speck on the wall and then return. And we'll check that out on the other side. So left knee bends. And then your choice, you can hook the elbow here or here. But let's start with a rounded spine. So curl your spine. You can roll behind your sits bones. And then do the opposite. Push into the ground with your left foot, your right heel. Start to lengthen up through your spine. Extend and rotate. And then we'll come back out of that into your slump, your rounded position. You can even let the left shoulder internally rotate, let that full bone rhythm happen. And then we reverse. So scapular retraction, spinal extension, feel your weight shift more up onto your sits bones, and then use your eyes. So track your eyes across the wall, and then track your eyes to maybe the wall behind you, and pick something you can see, the furthest thing. You'll try to remember that for later, and then slowly release. Okay, so we're gonna be on our belly in an X position. And you'll start just by connecting to the floor. And noticing how as you inhale, your belly can expand into the ground. You've got this full connection through your hands, through the tops of your feet. And then start to lift your head up as you slide your left arm across the floor towards your right arm. And that's going to initiate a rolling pattern in which your right elbow leads the way. So you turn your head, your chest starts to turn towards the ceiling, your right elbow leads the way, it's looking for the ground. You leave your right foot behind till that very last moment, and then you plop on your back. And then get comfy in your X on your back, and we'll go back the other way. So a couple options. Let's do the first option. You'll bend your right elbow, slide your right hand across your chest, and then look at your right hand with your eyes. That's going to lead your head into rotation and extension, which is also going to lead your chest into rotation and extension. You'll reach your right fingers past your left fingers, but I'm still reaching my left toes. This long diagonal. And then eventually I'm going to pull up back onto my belly. And we'll do it again, but this time going in the other direction. So to start, you'll begin lifting your head, looking forward. And this time it's your right arm that's going to slide towards your left arm. And now that your right arm is where your left arm is, start to slide your left hand across the top of your right arm, but lead with your elbow, your left elbow. Keep reaching your left foot towards the opposite side of the room and start to turn your head, your chest, your belly, and then pelvis, leg, and foot. There you are. Here we go the other way. So you can do the slide across, Or you could also try this variation where you slide your arm along the floor. And then when you run into your head, that's a cue to turn your head, to turn your fingers, to look up at your fingers and start to roll your chest, your belly. You're still reaching your left toes, and then slide your right arm and pop your leg. Let's do a few more in each direction. So lift your head, right arm slides to left. Left elbow bends, and you look at your elbow, and it's an upper extremity initiated rolling pattern. And then we go back the way we came. So left elbow bends, or you can slide your left arm along the floor. Follow your left hand with your eyes. Reach, get that long diagonal from left fingertips to left toes. And then right arm slides, and you're back on your belly. Last time, go ahead and lift your gaze. Start to slide your left arm towards your right. Bend your right elbow. Your elbow leads the way. So leave your right foot behind, head, chest, belly, and then plop into your X. And then either bend your left elbow, or you could slide your left arm along the ground and begin to spiral. Head, chest, belly. Connect your palms together, or reach, better yet, your left hand past your right, and then that's going to turn you all the way onto your belly. Lift your head and chest, slide your right arm towards your left, and then lead with your left elbow. As if you could drip your left elbow towards the floor, and then the rest of your body follows back into your X. From here, go ahead and bend your knees, roll onto your side, and come on up to seated. And let's recheck Marichyasana 3. So coming back into Dandasana. So starting in Dandasana, go ahead and bend your right knee, and then do your hook. So whether you like to do it this way or this way, and make sure you've got your right hand behind you for a little kickstand. And wiggle around a little, find your sits bones, your ischial tuberosities. And let's go back into that internal rotation of the right shoulder and spinal flexion. So roll back behind your sits bones, and then do the opposite. You'll roll forward onto your sits bones, start to externally rotate the right shoulder, lift your spine tall, and then add a turn of your head. So you'll take your eyes across the wall, and then along the wall back behind you, and pause for a moment, inhale. And as you exhale, use this ground force reaction. So right foot into the ground, left leg into the ground, right hand into the ground, to maybe turn a little further. And remember the thing that you looked at, and see if it's possible to see it a little better. I can actually have a lot more focus. I can see those outlets a little bit better. And then returning back. Let's try the other side. So left knee bends, and then you'll get your arm hook. Fingertips back for your little kickstand, and then round your spine. Take a breath in and expand into your back ribs and side ribs. And from this internally rotated shoulder position, start to externally rotate both shoulders. You'll feel your shoulder blades retract. Your spine starts to extend, and then add a turn of your head. Pause, don't go as far as you can. And let's round a little bit in that turn position. Inhale, and then exhale, lengthen again in your turned position. Pause once you are tall through your spine, and maybe turn a little further. Find the spot on the floor or the speck on the wall, and see if it's easier to find that with your drishti, your gaze, through your eyes, and then slowly release. So hopefully you noticed a difference after doing the rolling patterns in your Marichyasana 3. And that's, of course, not the only reason to do somatic sequencing and somatic movements, but I do find that it's a lovely way to introduce it to your students, especially if they love asana and are wanting to feel better in their poses. Thank you for joining me in this practice.